Good morning. I will apologize to anyone born after 1980, because what I'm about to say you might not understand. Now, Father Dominic was presiding at the 9 o'clock Mass. He was born in 1980. So my message wasn't for Father Dominic. Well, at least the first part of it anyway. I know I am old. I've accepted the fact that I am an aged man. I was born in the 60s. But back in 1987, there was an advertising campaign with the slogan, "Membership has its privileges." Anyone remember this campaign? Feel free to put your hand up if you like. Don't be shy. But are you confessing that you were born pre-1980 is the question. Membership has its privileges. What company was that? American Express. American Express. One of the most successful, certainly the most successful campaign when it comes to a credit card company. It ran for 10 years, which is really unheard of in the advertising and marketing world. 10 years is a very long time to run with the same slogan. It was very successful. And then it was followed up by another campaign, and the slogan was, "Don't leave home without it." Very good. Back to back. American Express. So those are from American Express. And at the time, rewards, what made this unique, not only to American Express, but just the credit card business in general, was that rewards that we're kind of used to today really didn't exist. So things like travel insurance or perks or extras when it came to a credit card really was not something that was normal. American Express really rewrote the business when it came to credit cards. They changed the landscape of what it was like to be a credit card holder. You were made to feel special or something, part of something that was unique. Now you might ask yourself, why am I talking about credit cards? Because we are in our fourth week of our preaching series on giving, and if you own a credit card currently, or if you've ever owned a credit card, obviously you would have probably given that credit card company some of your hard-earned money. Last week, Father James began our preaching series on giving, and he looked at the question of why. Why do we give? And he reminded us that we don't give to the church. We are the church. And he reminded us that we don't just pay the bills. We contribute to the mission of the church. We want to change things in the world for the better. And we do that by contributing to our efforts to the mission. This week, we want to look at how we give. Now, first of all, whether we know it or not, the concept of giving is rooted in Scripture. Jesus spoke a lot about the topic of money. In fact, did you know that 11 of the 39 parables are about money? So the story of the talents, and a manager is leaving, and he gives 3 of his slaves 3 different amounts, and he entrusts money to them. He wants to see what they will do with it, to take care of it, and to manage his money while he's away. There's a story of the widow and how she puts in 2 small copper coins into the treasury, how others around her put in hundreds of coins. And Jesus sees the old woman putting in 2 very small copper coins, insignificant probably to those around him, but not to Jesus, because he says that she contributed more to the treasury than anyone else, because she gave out of her meagerness. She gave all that she had, whereas the rest gave out of their abundance, their surplus, stuff that they didn't need. And she gave out of her very poverty. And he notes that. The topic of money is talked more about in the Bible than any other topic. The resurrection, less than 100 times. Healing, hundreds of times. Money and giving and possessions, over 2,000 times. So it's pretty obvious that our attitude towards money and how we give should be based on Scripture, where it is found in Scripture. I want to offer 3 considerations that we should use or like how we determine and make decisions about our giving. First consideration is our giving intentional? I want to point out that it's giving overall. It's giving to the church, it's giving to other charities. If you're like me, you don't just give to the church, you help fund other needy companies. So whether it is to the church or whether it is to somewhere else, is our giving intentional? Is there a plan in place? How many of us work with our finances, whether it's at tax time or year end, or you have a regular scheduled annual time where you sit down with a budget? And is giving part of that plan? Is giving part of that conversation? Do we prayerfully determine how we give? Do we discern that? Father James talks about a story about the fellow who's going into the basilica, and there's a panhandler outside, and the panhandler asks for change. You got any spare change? And the guy says, I can't give you my change. I'd have nothing for the collection. That doesn't sound like intentional giving to me. That's kind of an afterthought. And then have we adjusted our giving to keep up with inflation? Have we adjusted things because the cost of running the parish increase every year? I saw gas the other day went up by 10 cents. So do we help the parish in our giving by keeping up with the rising costs of inflation and the costs of running the parish? Do we give the same today as we gave 10 years ago? And by the way, I'm preaching to myself here. I mean, it's been over a year that Patty and I have sat down and gone through our how we give and where we give. So I'm preaching to myself, just for full disclosure. It's time for us, as we should file our taxes this week. So it's time to sit down and say, okay, what are we doing? Where are things being allocated? And we obviously plan to increase our giving. So I ask myself the very same questions that I'm offering to you. I don't want to point a finger at anyone. But if you're a member of Our Lady of Guadalupe Parish, these are all good questions for each and every one of us to consider. In order for our giving to be intentional, we need to be informed of the financial situation of the parish. If our giving is to be planned and purposeful, which is why we put together the Stewardship Treasure booklet. Now, if you're connected to the parish electronically and you get emails from the parish, one of these would have hit your mailbox yesterday. So we want you to be informed about how you give and the requirements and the necessities of the parish, what our needs are. And there's not only, there are certainly a lot of financial information in here, but there's also stories in here about how people's lives have been touched by the giving, your giving. Lives have been changed. That's our desire. We don't give simply to pay the bills. We give to change people's lives. So there's a couple of great stories in there, and there's a couple of prayers. It's a wonderful booklet and well put together. So we just ask you to take a few minutes this week and go through it. Membership has its privileges. Received an Easter card. This is again about membership and what are our thoughts about how we belong to this parish. Got a lovely Easter card from a parishioner, wonderful. And her words were, we love belonging to your parish. I know what she meant, but it's not my parish. It's your parish. I'd love for her to say, I love belonging to my parish. because we need to take ownership. I know what she was saying, and I don't, don't get me wrong, I love the fact that she loves belonging to this parish, but it's her parish. It's not mine, it's ours. In our gospel, we see the differences between the Good Shepherd and the hired hand. The Good Shepherd has membership characteristics. The Good Shepherd has a vested interest in the flock. He is concerned about the welfare of others. And the hired hand is concerned only for himself. The Good Shepherd is prepared to lay down his life for the sheep, while the hired hand runs when he sees the wolf coming. He bolts. The Good Shepherd is self-giving to the sheep, while the hired hand is self-centered. And the Good Shepherd cares for the sheep while expecting nothing in return, while the hired hand has WIIFM syndrome. Do we know what WIIFM syndrome is? What's in it for me? What's in it for me? And I think what's in it for me? Every good homily needs a picture of a baby. That's just my philosophy. You get a picture of James. What's in it for me? So who do we wish to be? The Good Shepherd or the hired hand? Number two, our giving has to be sacrificial. In the Old Testament, God commanded the Jewish people to give 10% of their wealth as a sign of their obedience. The number 10 in Jewish numerology is a sign of wholeness, represents wholeness. Giving 10% is known as tithing. Tithing is not a command today as much as it is a goal to strive for. So, does what we give feel like a sacrifice? I want to give you an analogy of giving a dinner party. We invite our friends over for dinner, and they bring a bottle of wine and they bring some dessert. And as we sit down at the table, we give them a plate of leftovers. Everything else, the good food that we prepared, the bottle of wine, the dessert is back in the kitchen. God has given us a beautiful meal. He has entrusted things to us. He has given us everything. And yet we give him our leftovers. We give him what we have left over after everything else is taken care of. You've heard about first fruits. Ideally, that's what we want to do, because we give first, not leftovers. We give first to God, as we say, what belongs to God. We are well short of what's possible if we give God our leftovers. If God is generous, if his sacrifice made for us is great, is good, is worthwhile, what is our response in gratitude to what he has given us? God does not tell us what to give. He does not command to give him 10%, but he does expect us to be generous. And finally, our giving ought to be proportional. Now, there are a couple of considerations when we look at proportionality. First of all, we need to recognize that we can't give what we don't have, but we can all give something. We can all contribute to the mission based on our ability. Two people can give very different amounts, but their value is the same in the eyes of God. Remember this, the widow and the 2 coins. The amount of our gift is in proportional to what we have, That is proportionality. I have this much and I give this much. Do we believe that God is generous? If we do, does our giving show? You've probably heard the old adage that you cannot take it with you, and that's probably correct because it wasn't ours in the first place. I truly believe that what I have belongs to God, and I simply give it back. It's not mine. I don't own it. It is His. He has entrusted me with it. Proportionality is a consideration in our giving. We all have the ability to give, but the ability to give and what we give will vary. Membership has its privileges. In 1987, American Express, if you carried that card, gave you an opportunity to take advantage of travel rewards and perks. And as a member of Our Lady of Guadalupe, among other things, to be part of a community, of a growing community, become a part of Dartmouth, you have the opportunity to change the world. During this preaching series, we have set aside 3 weeks, 45 minutes, give or take, depends on how long Father James's homilies are. But about 45 minutes to talk about the most important or the most talked about topic that Jesus spoke in Scripture. So here's the ask for this week: to get a copy, whether electronic or a hard copy, of the report and read it. Understand where we are as a parish. Read the stories of changed lives. Understand the financial information that is contained here. And then reflect on how you give your current giving. And ask yourself, is my giving intentional? Is my giving sacrificial? Is my giving proportional? Next week, Father James will finish up our preaching series when he looks at next steps.